The deer stood on the shoulder, but its antlers were made of twisted metal. I didn't notice them at first. What caught my attention was how still it was, caught in the edge of my headlights as I rounded a slow bend, pale body half lit, half swallowed by the trees. I eased off the gas instinctively. The road was narrow, no lines, no reflectors, just a strip of worn asphalt threading through dense forest. My engine dropped into a low idle, a steady vibration humming through the wheel. The deer didn't move. That alone was enough to feel wrong. I've driven enough back roads to know how deer behave. They freeze, sure, but only for a moment. Then they bolt, vanish, dissolve into the dark like they were never there. This one just stood, head angled slightly toward the woods, as if listening. I rolled to a stop a few car lengths away. The engine idled softly. Cold air pressed against the windows, faint fog blooming where I exhaled. The forest felt close, too close, crowding the edges of the road. Then the light shifted and I saw the antlers. They rose from its skull in branching shapes that didn't belong to anything alive. Dark metal, warped and uneven, curling and splitting like something that had been melted and forced into the rough suggestion of antlers. Some tines were flattened, others jagged, one bent at a sharp angle like it had snapped and fused back wrong. Rust clung to them in thick patches. Not surface rust, deep, pitted corrosion that ate into the structure, giving the impression that they should crumble at any second. But they didn't. They held rigid and wrong. At the base, they didn't sit on the deer's head. They continued into it. No seam, no boundary, just a gradual shift from fur to something dull and metallic, as if the animal had grown them instead of bone. A faint creaking reached me. I leaned forward slightly, squinting through the windshield. The sound came again, soft, irregular, metal under tension. The deer's head turned a fraction. The antlers followed with a slow, grinding motion. I felt a tightness in my chest. I flicked on my high beams. The light struck the metal and scattered strangely. Not a clean reflection. Something broken, uneven. Glints shot off at odd angles, flashing into the trees. For a second, it looked like there were shapes deeper in the forest, tall, thin, standing between the trunks. Then it was gone. The deer didn't react to the light. It turned its head slightly toward me, eyes catching the beams. They reflected, but not like I expected. There was depth there, something layered beneath the surface, like looking into warped glass. The creaking continued. I noticed the guardrail then. Just behind the deer, it was crushed inward, twisted and folded. The metal was bent in on itself in overlapping ridges, like something had hit it hard enough to reshape it completely. The posts were crooked, some nearly torn free. Dark skid marks streaked the road leading up to it. Not just one set, several. They overlapped, crossing and curving in ways that suggested sudden braking, swerving panic. I hadn't seen them at first. My focus had gone straight to the deer. Now they stood out, unavoidable. There was debris along the shoulder, two small pieces. A cracked side mirror. A strip of rubber. Something that looked like part of a headlight housing. They weren't scattered randomly. They formed a loose arc, centered on the deer. I swallowed. The engine idled, steady but too loud in the silence. It felt like the only thing keeping me anchored to something normal. The deer took a step forward. I didn't see it move. One moment it was at the edge of the asphalt, the next its front hooves were on the road. No sound of gravel, no shift of weight, just closer. The creaking grew slightly louder. I shifted in my seat, a cold prickle crawling up my arms. The air inside the car felt thinner, colder, like the temperature had dropped without me noticing. I glanced at my phone. No signal. When I looked back up, the deer was closer again. Another step, taken in that same impossible way, unseen, unannounced. The arc of debris seemed to adjust with it, maintaining that shape. I put the car in reverse. The gear shift clicked, louder than it should have. The engine pitch changed as I eased off the brake. The car rolled back a few inches. The deer stepped forward. Again, I missed the motion itself. I stopped immediately. The engine idled. The deer's head lowered slightly. The metal antlers tilted forward, and the creaking shifted into something deeper, a drawn-out groan. One of the thinner tines flexed, bending in a way solid metal shouldn't, then easing back. A small flake of rust broke loose and drifted down. I pressed the horn. The sound blasted through the quiet, sharp and jarring. It echoed once and died quickly, swallowed by the trees. The deer didn't flinch, didn't blink, took another step. My grip tightened on the wheel. Something about the road behind the deer pulled at my attention. The skid marks didn't just lead into the guardrail. Some of them curved back across the road in tight arcs, overlapping again and again like multiple attempts to turn around. Like people had tried to leave. My headlights flickered, just for a second. In that brief dimming, the reflections from the antlers stretched and shifted, reaching deeper into the trees. The darkness beyond seemed to lean closer, thickening. When the lights steadied, the deer was almost at the hood. Its eyes filled more of my view now, reflecting the light and something else. Something that didn't match the forest or the road. Movement, faint and distorted, like reflections from somewhere else entirely. The creaking continued. Then I noticed another sound beneath it. A faint tapping. Irregular at first. Soft, like something small striking metal from the inside. I froze. The tapping moved along the antlers, traveling from one twisted branch to another. A hollow, contained sound, as if it were trapped within the metal itself. One of the thicker tines gave a slight twitch. The tapping grew more distinct. The deer opened its mouth slightly. No breath came out, no sound, but the tapping stopped. The silence that followed felt heavier. Then, behind me, something creaked. Not metal, wood. I glanced at the rearview mirror. The road behind me stretched empty for a short distance before bending out of sight. The forest pressed just as close there, dark and featureless. But along the shoulder, where I hadn't noticed anything before, there were shapes. Low, still, arranged. I turned slightly, trying to see them more clearly. At first they looked like debris, like the pieces near the guardrail ahead. Then one shifted. Slowly, deliberately, a shape lifted. Antlers. More than one. Each set different. Each one wrong. The faint sound of metal creaking rose from behind me. Overlapping. Uneven. I snapped my gaze forward. The deer stood inches from the hood. The tip of one metal tine hovered just above the surface of my car, close enough that I could see its texture. Pitted, scratched, layered with rust. The tapping started again. Not in the antlers. Inside the car. A faint metallic tick from beneath the hood. Another from the dashboard. Then one from behind me, somewhere near the trunk. My breath caught. The engine stuttered, its steady idle braking for a moment before catching again. Rougher now. The deer leaned forward. The metal tine touched the hood. The sound wasn't a scrape. It was a knock. Soft, measured. The tapping inside the car fell into rhythm with it. Knock, knock, knock. I understood the skid marks then. Not just where people had tried to stop. Where they had tried to turn. Where they had hesitated. The deer's eyes didn't leave mine. The antlers creaked, slowly widening, as if making space. The knocking continued, patient, waiting, and behind me, in the darkness I couldn't see, the others answered. The next overpass had a figure standing on top, facing away yet watching me. I saw it long before I reached it. Out here, the highway ran straight for miles between dense walls of forest, the kind that swallowed light and gave nothing back. My headlights cut a narrow tunnel through the dark, illuminating cracked asphalt and the pale line of the shoulder. Beyond that, the trees pressed close, trunks packed tight, branches tangled into a black mass. There was no traffic, no taillights ahead, no headlights behind. Just the steady hum of my engine and the low rush of wind slipping over the car. The overpass rose in the distance as a darker shape against the night sky. As I got closer, my beams caught the underside first. Concrete stained with old streaks of water and soot. The structure loomed, silent and heavy. That's when I noticed the figure. It stood on the edge of the overpass, near the center, silhouetted against the faint gray of the sky. Tall, unmoving, its outline sharp and unnatural against the clean lines of the railing. Facing away, looking out into the forest beyond the highway. I eased off the gas without thinking. The engine dropped into a lower idle, the sound settling into a quiet, steady rhythm. My grip tightened on the wheel. Something about it felt wrong immediately. Not because someone was up there, that was strange enough this far from anything, but because of how still it was. No shifting weight, no adjustment of posture. It stood like it had been placed there, like it belonged to the overpass. A faint wind stirred, carrying the dry whisper of leaves through the trees. The sound drifted under the bridge and echoed back in a low, hollow murmur. The figure didn't react. I glanced down at my speed, then back up. Still there, still facing away. But I had the unmistakable sense that it knew exactly where I was. The feeling crept in slowly, like cold seeping through glass. Not something I could point to, no movement, no visible sign. Just the awareness of being noticed, tracked. I swallowed and kept driving. The road ahead was clear. I could pass under the overpass in a few seconds, leave it behind, and whatever this was would just become another strange memory from a long drive. That's what I told myself. My headlights swept over the concrete supports as I approached. The beams stretched the shadows long and thin, turning the space beneath into a shifting pattern of dark and light. I noticed the ground then. There were tire marks leading up to the overpass. Several of them. Dark arcs that cut across the lanes and onto the shoulder, as if cars had braked hard or swerved suddenly. Some overlapped, some veered off and corrected. Near the base of one support column, broken glass glittered faintly in the light. A small patch of asphalt nearby was blackened, scorched in an uneven circle that didn't quite match any obvious cause. I hadn't seen anything like that for miles. The highway had been empty, untouched. Until here, my foot hovered over the brake. The engine idled lower as I slowed further. The sound seemed to echo more under the overpass, bouncing off the concrete in a dull, hollow rhythm. The figure remained perfectly still, facing away. But the closer I got, the stronger the feeling became that it was aware of me. Not just aware, but focused, like a pressure at the back of my eyes. I reached the edge of the shadow beneath the overpass. The headlights hit the underside fully now, washing the concrete in pale light. The echoes of the engine deepened, turning into a low, enclosed hum that filled the car. I looked up. The figure stood directly above me now, still facing away. And yet, something shifted. Not the figure itself, the reflection. For a fraction of a second, in the windshield, I saw a suggestion of movement that didn't match what was above. A slight turn, tilt, as if the figure had adjusted to keep me centered. I blinked hard. When I looked again, it was unchanged, still facing away. My pulse picked up. I pressed the accelerator. The car surged forward, engine noise rising as I committed to passing under and getting away from it. The moment I crossed fully into the shadow beneath the overpass, something in the air changed. The temperature dropped sharply. The hum of the engine became louder, distorted by the concrete. The wind noise vanished entirely, replaced by a heavy, suffocating stillness. I kept my eyes forward. I didn't want to look up again. The space under the bridge felt longer than it should have been. The supports seemed farther apart, the shadows deeper, stretching the distance. Then I was through, back into open road. The forest closed in again, but the sky above was visible, faint and distant. The engine sound returned to normal, the wind slipping past the car once more. I exhaled, not realizing I'd been holding my breath. As behind me, I thought. I checked the rearview mirror. The overpass receded into the distance, its dark shape shrinking. The figure was still there, standing on top, facing away. I felt a flicker of relief. Then the figure moved. Not a turn, not a shift of posture. It was simply closer. I frowned, leaning slightly toward the mirror. That wasn't possible. I had already passed it. The distance between us should have been increasing. But the figure appeared larger now, its outline clearer against the sky. Still facing away. Still not moving. My stomach tightened. I glanced forward again, then back to the mirror. Closer. The overpass itself hadn't changed size the way it should have if I were moving away. It hung there, fixed, as if the road behind me had stopped stretching. I pressed harder on the accelerator. The engine responded, climbing in pitch. The trees blurred slightly at the edges of my vision. But the mirror didn't change. The overpass remained the same distance behind me. And the figure, it was no longer on top. My breath caught. It stood now on the side of the road. Behind me, centered in the lane, facing away. I slammed the brake instinctively, then caught myself and released it. The tires chirped briefly, the sound sharp in the night. No, I muttered under my breath. I looked forward. Empty road. I looked back again. The figure was closer, still facing away. But now it was lower, its feet clearly on the asphalt. Its outline sharper, more defined. It hadn't crossed the distance. It had skipped it. I turned my eyes forward again, forcing myself not to keep checking. Just drive. Just go. The engine roared as I pushed it harder, the speed climbing. The forest blurred into dark streaks on either side. For a moment, I thought I was leaving it behind. Then my headlights caught something ahead. A shape in the distance, standing in the center of the road. My chest tightened. No, I didn't slow down. As I got closer, the shape resolved. The same figure, facing away. In front of me now. I flicked my eyes to the rearview mirror. Still there. Behind me. Two of them. Identical. Neither moving. Both facing away. And yet I could feel it. Feel them. Tracking me, their attention fixed and unbroken. The air in the car felt colder again. The engine sound wavered slightly, as if something interfered with its rhythm. I gripped the wheel tighter. The figure ahead didn't step aside. It didn't react. It simply remained in the lane, waiting. At the last second, I swerved. The tires squealed, the car veering onto the shoulder before I corrected back onto the road. Gravel rattled against the undercarriage. For a split second, as my headlights swept past it, the light caught the figure at an angle. I saw its front, or what should have been its front. There was no face, no features, just the back of a head. Smooth, unbroken, as if it had been turned completely around without changing shape. I jerked my gaze forward, heart hammering. The road stretched ahead again, empty. I didn't look back. I didn't want to know how many there were now. But the feeling didn't fade. If anything, it grew stronger, closer, more focused. The engine's hum began to echo faintly, as if I were still under the overpass. The sound bounced in ways it shouldn't, filling the car with a low, enclosed resonance. I glanced at the rearview mirror despite myself. The overpass was there again, much closer than it should have been. The figure stood on top, facing away, waiting. I looked forward. Another overpass loomed in the distance. Identical, same shape, same stains, same unnatural stillness. And as my headlights reached its edge, I could already see the figure standing above it, facing away, watching me approach. Again.